All right, and we are live. Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ring of Hire Show. Hey, tonight I have Allison Perez with me from Winter Haven, Florida, and we're going to put her back to work. Everybody knows this is my favorite part of the show. I love bringing candidates on, and we're going to do a live interview tonight with Allison. So, how's it going, Allison? All right.
It's good. Yeah, we're doing good over here.
All right, you ready for some tough questions?
I hope they're not too bad.
Not too bad. All right, we'll be right back after this video. That's the part where it goes real fast. You transitioned over to both of us. We already have I got to say hello to Shelly here. I think you were on the show. Were you on with Shelly?
Yes.
That's right.
The unknown user, but yes. Yes,
yeah, unknown user. That's right. You were. Tonight, everybody, I'm going to jump right into it because this is, like I said, this is a part of the show that I love doing. And Allison, I got to give you credit. You were right away. Like, you want to come on the show? You're like, yes. So why don't you introduce yourself and just tell us what you do, and then we're going to go into depth.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Allison Perez, obviously from Winter Haven, and I originally had started as a school teacher and moved and transitioned last year, at the beginning of the year, as into instructional design. And so that's what I'm looking for now, is an instructional design position.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you that right away. Like I told you, when I first read that, I was like, all right, explain to me and people, what is an instructional design?
Right. I'm responsible for making e-learning courses, and that can be anything from, depending on where I work, from compliance courses, which everyone has taken in every job ever, to things like creating some fun courses or medical device training courses. And I've even worked in the K-12 space on curriculum and creating courses for that as well.
Do you find that there's, I know we talked about before, you're looking for remote work, right? That works. That's ideally.
Yes.
In your industry, that's probably not uncommon though, right?
Not at all. Yeah, that's mostly most of the instructional designers I know work remotely. But yeah, I mean, there are some opportunities that are on site as well.
Right. I mean, I can imagine Shelly. Oh, she's going to be ready tonight. She's already. That's awesome. No, that's great. I wanted to ask you. So let's take you back. Let's take you back into December 11th. Oh, nope. I'm actually going. Let me get my niece here. We're going to go back. Yeah, December 11th. So you worked as a teacher. So God, you were in for that for, like you said, for quite a few years.
Yes. Yeah, forever. No, I was a teacher for almost 10 years. I started brick and mortar in the classroom and made a jump to virtual school well before COVID. Before everyone was doing virtual school. And then I really wanted to change. I wanted to make a bigger impact on the content that was being created in the classroom. And I also wanted to be able to make an impact on teachers and work on professional development. And so I had jumped into curriculum writing in the same organization. So I stayed with Florida Virtual for a while.
Did that help? I'm going to back this up. Did that help from being a teacher and all that you've done for what you're looking for now? That really must have played a big role in that, right? I mean, the skill set that you have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially just as a virtual teacher, it's very different than teaching in a brick and mortar classroom. The content is always there for you. The book is basically online for you as the teacher. And the students are going through that book, and you're there to guide them and teach. You do teach live classes as well. But it was really that online textbook type feel that I wanted to make an impact on. And so I saw that e-learning in that in a completely different capacity, at a completely different capacity that I'm in now. And that's really what made me want to kind of make some changes and make an impact on students and teachers from there.
This is what I like about doing a show, because then I think of questions that I want to ask you that's not written down, is when you said about you wanted to make a difference and put your input, when you go into a position like you're looking for, is that something that companies, that your skill set, you can go in there and assist of planning and putting it out? Or is it something you're going in there and this is what you're going to do and that's it? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like if you make an impact of like what you're doing, like your skill set, you're going into a company, this is going to say what you're doing. But if you can have an impact, what can you have say in some of the stuff, or is it?
It depends. So in K-12, every state has their own standards that you have to abide by, and you do get some creative freedoms with how you present that material. So there is, I would be able to have some sort of impact or say on how that goes. And then it just kind of depends on the company too. I mean, if I were to think about the corporate world and creating training for corporate, I've worked for places that have been totally excited for new innovative things, and they want you to kind of get in there and use your creative juices. But then I've also worked for other places that wanted things very regimented and consistent. And so it kind of depends on the content and the organization.
So I guess it's kind of like, when I'm looking for a career or something like that, and for you, I guess it's what you believe or what you like. I mean, like you said, e-learning, to me, e-learning was back in the day, it was like, that was just, I don't know, boy, it was just so different compared to now, and then with COVID, your skill set of working remote, God, this must have been like nothing to you.
Right.
You must have been like, I don't know what everybody's complaining about. You were doing remote work before everybody even thought about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it didn't impact anything I was doing. It was exactly the same. It was interesting to see kind of the other side of that and others struggle with it and not really almost, feel blindsided. How do I work in this way or remotely, or I miss that, office talk or having those social moments with like your coworkers, which I still have, but it's not the same when you walk into like the teacher's lounge or anything like that.
That's what I mean, because when I was looking at what you've done, I'm thinking, wow, I complained for 2 years of it. You know what it is. A lot of people think it's easy, and I didn't discipline myself enough. I didn't. When you're working remote, you got to learn. I'm sure I mean, to take those breaks, to stop. Like work for me, I couldn't stop when I was working from home. I'd be like nonstop. I'd go over to the house and I think of something else. I'd go right back and try to fix the problem. And I'm sure you do that all the time. But before you know it, your 8-hour days are 12 hours. You're looking at the clock. You're like, wow, that was fast.
Oh yeah, it's you have to set boundaries, and you have to have. I have a room, and it's my office. It's a bedroom. We converted into an office, but you close the door and you don't go back in. That was my boundaries. So.
Well, looking at your background, I asked Allison, I was like, what is that background? And it's a wallpaper, right?
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And I cannot believe, but I'm going to, like you said, I'm always going to remember you for that background. That's awesome. Do you ever find yourself open to going back to teaching, or you trying to, you've been in for that so long, I guess it's always on your mind, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have a 5-year-old who starts kindergarten next year. How great would it be to be a teacher and be able to have my summers off with him? Yes and no. I feel like I'm taking a little bit of a step back career-wise. If I were to do that, and I really wanted to push into instructional design. So would I be against going back to the classroom? Not at all. It's not where I who is where they think they were going to be in 5 years, the 5-year plan.
Yeah, I know. That was one of my questions, but you might as well get that out of your way right now. So that's one of them. You know what? Until I told you about this book here, that question there, I always was like, okay, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I want a job. I need the job. I'm thinking, I want to build with your company. All right. I want to grow with your company. I want to, step up, try new projects, everything like that. And I'm thinking, all right, did I say enough? Did I say enough for that?
Right. Oh yeah. No, even it's great to have a focus, right? Have your 5-year plan focus. But as we all saw with COVID and that we're seeing with layoffs, it's just it's not always that the path that it happens, and that's fine. I like the focus. So my focus is really to be, pushing deeper into that instructional design world, leading a team at some point, and going that route. But again, I'm open to other things. We all, well, the people on your show, we all have to work, I'm assuming. So.
Yeah, I know, right? And Shelly's like, so true. Shelly, it's your turn to ask a question tonight. Now you're on the opposite side, so feel free to ask Allison a question. Allison, what's the difference between, just putting it out there, instructional designer and a curriculum writer? Is it?
Well, I'm finding as I jumped into instructional design how different instructional design really means for so many people, and sometimes that means
no clue.
Curriculum writer. So sometimes that means you're just writing the curriculum for a course. And so as a curriculum writer, that's what I was doing. I was writing the content for a course. This was career and technical education courses. So I was writing for those kids that were going to take exams to certify them and be employable right outside of high school. And that was similar to what I'm doing, what I've done in the instructional design world. I'm writing courses. Now it could be in so many different capacities. Writing a course, it could be actually putting that course into some sort of authoring tool. So that way it can be put into the hands of employees and they can take those courses. I think it's really, truly, curriculum writer is just a small part of instructional design.
That's got to be all. I mean, I can imagine when I hear you talking about that, you can't make mistakes. I'm sorry, but to you, like, you're putting stuff out for children, you're putting stuff out for adults, whatever you're doing is like where you're getting information for the company and the skill set that you have for that. Is it a continuous growth to learn what you do? I can't even imagine it. For me, I'm lost.
I mean, yes. It depends on your organization. So when I was a curriculum writer, I actually had to become the subject matter expert. So I had to go in and learn all about the courses that I was writing. When my last course I wrote in that position was for agriculture communications. So I had to learn all about ag communications.
That's what I mean. The research. So you're researching
everything.
I can't even imagine what you're talking about. We research a company for an interview, but if you don't, I mean, that's got to be insane.
It's fun. I mean, that's probably
that's part of it.
Yeah, I love to learn. So getting in there and learning more about things that I never thought about. Agriculture communications. I mean, I live in a strong agriculture area, but never thinking that I was going to learn about how we communicate that stuff. So really diving into those things and diving into whether it's like a compliance course on following some sort of policy and really having a good understanding. I mean, you just have to become that expert of whatever it is you're about to write.
Right.
And so you do a lot of research. There's a decent discovery period anytime you start a course.
What you're doing and
to get in there and learn and understand what you're about to write for.
Now, I noticed on here, like we were talking before about you working remote and your position could be anywhere in the United States or anywhere. I mean, because it's all over. I mean, let's face it. But if you were to, naturally, that's the remote work. But if you were to work in brick and mortar again, if you were to go to work for a company around your area, I wanted to ask you what towns and cities, what areas are you looking to work at?
So it'd be Central Florida areas around Lakeland, Winter Haven. We are by Lake Wales, Haines City, Auburndale. I'm sure there's more. Did I say Barstow? We're kind of in that very central Florida location, right in between Tampa and Orlando. And Orlando's a little bit of a trek, but that's possible. Tampa's possible too.
If I had your friends right in this room right here, your bosses and everybody, and you were outside, and I asked them, tell me about Allison. Besides Allison correcting me on my spelling on my planner here, I should have known, a writer. I was like, oh my God, I spelled her name wrong. But in all seriousness, what would they say about you as a person? What would they say, and what your strengths or anything?
That I'm consistent, have good work ethic, creative, very creative, but I mean, I don't feel like that's hard to find in the instructional design world.
Right.
Um,
Well, you smile. I mean, I have no clue yet what you actually do yet besides write stuff. But I mean, you're a happy person, so that's good.
yeah, and calm and level-headed. I think in my position, you deal with a lot of pushback sometimes on getting courses out or having to redo stuff completely that you've completed. You know, that they just, you know, maybe stakeholders didn't like, or they wanted you to change stuff, and it can be a very frustrating position if you're not used to that kind of feedback. And a lot of people, I feel like, when they first start in instructional design, you know, you don't realize how much you're critiqued in everything you do. You're critiqued in what you write, you're critiqued in how the course is. And you just, you know, being able to like have that high emotional intelligence and not to get upset about those things. That's something that I do feel like I have, you know, have and even grown in, I guess, since since I switched from teaching.
So you can put a lot of work into some project too, and then, or whatever you want, you know, you put that in there, and then they can just turn it down and say redo it, or something has
or
to be
say we're not doing this anymore. You know, that's that too.
But do you get audited? Do companies like you work for, when you do stuff work like that, that's got to be audited, right? I mean, is it state regulated? Like a lot of it's state regulated too, or
you know, again, it depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes it's just fun. Sometimes it's like I get to do the fun courses, but sometimes there are very specific things that need to be said and have to be said a certain way, and we have to be, you know, very careful with certain things, especially K-12. You get a lot of, you know, those state standards you have to follow.
Yeah.
But and a lot of times in corporate worlds, they have a little bit more freedom to kind of pick and choose what courses are doing and what it's for. But I mean, internal audits we definitely do to make sure that we're really spreading a consistent message, because learning and development, I mean, you're ground zero. I mean, you're the first people, you know, first thing people see in onboarding, creating an onboarding program. That's what I would do, right? So, you know,
I forgot that makes sense when you're doing all that, because I keep forgetting somebody's got to write. Where's it coming from? You know, it's coming from somebody. All the software, different software companies, and I can just imagine. I keep forgetting about that. That's another I mean, another big projects there in there. The software companies. Is that stuff that you in your field that you would do also?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Instructional design. If you just think of an e-learning course in any capacity, then that is what the instructional designer did. So that could be software training. It could be just onboarding, you know, first day, someone in any company, in any, you know, level of wherever they are, and, you know, whatever title they have. You know, so there's so many areas that I could be working in that it's just, everyone has an instructional designer, whether they know it or not. Their company does. So
when you're looking for a company, what are you looking for now? Like within a company, ever since COVID, we always talk about it. The new words, you know, transferable skills. You're looking at work-life balance. You know, people with families. I know you, like you said, you like to work remote. You've been doing it the majority of your life there. What is a company that you're looking for? Like, what does it mean to you to look for when you look at a company? Because I'm sure you research. I can imagine you already, since you corrected my spelling, I can imagine you're looking at everything and being a writer.
Oh yeah. You know, I at the end of the day, I want to work for a company that's going to value what I have to offer. And a company that has a great company culture. Now, how do you even gauge that? It's very difficult to, you know, until you're there. But I mean, there's some things you can look at and really get a feel for, and even reviews and Glassdoor and things like that are very helpful when you're looking for company culture. So a good company culture, a place for growth. I'm always looking for a place for growth. I feel like that is where I feel like I hit my ceiling, is if I'm at a place where I can't grow anymore, then I do feel like, you know, I need to go. I need to move on. My time here has ended. So those are really important to me. And I've had, especially at Aptive, I have some amazing coworkers, and a lead that was just, I mean,
I can imagine what you build up through all the years. You probably still talk to people.
Oh yeah.
You have to. I mean, you network. I'm sure you network. You you call
Oh,
them?
yeah.
I mean, you'd have to, I guess, because when you're looking for other companies, see, I got all these questions coming now. When you're going for them, do the majority of companies handle different e-learnings, like any kind of writing, or is it just one thing? Like I saw one thing like you did for fire companies.
Right.
And then K College, let's just say, do they focus on one area, or could they be mixed?
Yeah. So the very first company I worked for, it was a contract. They were contracted out by other companies to run their e-learning or help write or create their e-learning.
Right.
And so in that position, I worked on a K-12 program. I worked on a medical device virtual reality course.
Yeah, you were saying
Awesome.
that that's got to be something.
That was awesome. And there was a lot of different things in that world. But then the company that I, just finished up with, that was strictly focused in pest control and really
Right.
just trying to focus on how we're going to do onboarding for these new pest control new hires and how we can explain the new plans that are coming out and those kinds of things. So those are a little more linear.
Right.
But with the very first job, it was, I had the opportunity to really do so many different things.
Right.
And it was that, that was really cool. That was actually kind of hitting the ground running in instructional design. I got probably many years worth of experience there, just because it was so varied in what I was doing.
When you were doing, I noticed you do have. I took note of this because I'm paying all the time. I just did another video coming out with that Fever app. Where you can get on there and these are people, but you've done a lot of you've taken a lot of graphic design courses, Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop. I guess that's some of your passion, right?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Actually, I had when I was teaching, I'm a sucker for learning. I'm always learning, and this was even prior to jumping into instructional design. As a teacher, right. I had time to go take some graphic design courses, and so I did. I took all the ones that I could at the local college nearby just for fun.
Right.
But it is helping me now because it's something a skill that I needed. So I didn't know that it was going to end up that way, but it was very helpful.
I have a hard time with PowerPoint. I'm thinking, when I look at, I wish I could learn a skill like that because that opens the door for everything that you want to do in a business.
Oh yeah.
If I would have known this for the business when I had the staffing, that would have saved me a lot of money. Everybody was telling me all the time, "Oh, do it this way. It's easy. Do Canvas, all this." I'm like, seriously? I was like, come on. I'll pay somebody to do it. You got to know what you're doing there, and you seem to have a passion. It says here, I like how you put, I'm very passionate about my work and always eager to connect with others. That while I enjoy all aspects of my job, I like that word that you put there, eager to connect. And passionate, that word you don't find many people. What are you passionate about in your work? What do you take really seriously, or you're passionate that you developing something? Or
yeah, I think, and this is a goal for most instructional designers, and I think this is probably why I gravitated this way, but really just creating something that is the best it can be for the end user. So I really want, and this is what kind of drew me to this world anyway.
Right.
I was teaching and I'm seeing a lot of things that could be better, could do it differently, and
I didn't even think about that. You'll probably be looking at everything saying, it's like, oh no, I wouldn't have done it this way. I would have done it this. Oh wow, I could picture that. I'd go crazy.
Yeah. And and probably not everything. I want to make sure I hold that judgment filter on everything, but just thinking about what if we did this, or what if we wrote it this way, or how could this be more relatable? And especially at that time for high school students, who were struggling at the end of their senior year they're ready to be done, so
they're ready to get out.
Engaging, right? Like that senioritis really hits around, that senior year, the very beginning, they're ready. So, and just being on the other side, talking to those kids and saying why aren't you doing your work? I'm just curious. I want to see what would make it better. And really having those firsthand interviews to these kids who they don't really like what's going on. And so I really wanted to make that impact. And I think that was what I was passionate most about, was just making something that was really helpful for that end user, and really thinking about who that's going to be and how they could apply it, and if they would apply it based on how we're presenting it to them.
That's awesome. I wanted to talk about your education. You were at what, University of South Florida?
Yes.
And you were there. You have a bachelor's, BS in biomedical sciences.
Yeah, absolutely nothing to do with this.
Yeah, that's all right. Talk to me there. All right, Cornell University certification UX design.
Right.
What? So you went biomedical sciences and you ended up doing what you do. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, like I said, I wouldn't even know what that is. I'd be like, okay, what is that? I was reading all over your stuff. I was like, all right, she's got a lot of skills. I'm like, what is that now?
We like to call it well-rounded. Yeah, no. So biomedical science. I wanted to be a dentist for a really long time, and my senior year, I was shadowing these dentists, and
Right.
come to find out, I have a little bit of an aversion to blood that I was
Right.
unaware of. So instead of just starting over, I finished my degree in biomed, and then I was working for a tutoring company while I was in college. And I got hired full time for a position through the tutoring company. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, that was just kind of the next step, was to go into teaching, because that's kind of, I ran out of options,
Yeah.
But I'm glad it worked out that way. It wasn't the plan I had,
Yeah,
but
you got a very strong work record. Your work record's
yeah.
outstanding. I mean, you have something to be proud of there. I'll tell you, your work record. When I was looking at this, I was like, wow, that's the first thing I look at. And a lot of people, when you're doing your resumes and you're going through an interview, some people, I look at just like a tenure a little bit, and then you do have reasons why. They're, ever since with even COVID, some of the resumes you really got to read careful, because you can't just judge right off the bat. You got to put that in there and say, okay, why is this person doing this, that? We talked about interviewing, and when Shelly was on the show, and you were saying sometimes you have to go like to 3 to 4 interviews altogether.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it may be part of like the instructional design world, because they want to know that you can do the skills, and you need to have some sort of proof of that. So
How
that's
did how do they do that? Like, how do they do that with you? Like, what do you show? I mean, do you have projects that you show them, or do you have to
yeah.
do
Oh
things?
yeah.
Or
Yeah, having a portfolio is key. So I have a
right,
portfolio, but so, sometimes they want you to do a project through the interview. Sometimes it's, we're going to give you something in a day or two to do it. And then you come back and present your what you've created. And I've done it in many different ways. Sometimes it's, making an infographic that's interactive. Sometimes it's just writing a script for a very short micro learning course,
right,
or a script for a video. So yeah, I mean, that happens.
right.
I feel like it's less common right now, actually, more than it had been when I first jumped into instructional design. But yeah, I mean, usually if you have a portfolio, that's
What you
that
get.
will
That
suffice.
makes total sense, because I was thinking, how in the world do you judge that from just interviewing?
Yeah.
And now, as you're discussing, now that I've learned what you do, I can imagine, because this is a question I like asking. It brings it to that point. If you were hiring for, an instructional designer, if you were your boss, you're there doing the interview, what would you look for in a person that's for your job? What would you ask? Like, what would you look at and say, okay, you know what, I like this person, or I think they're
Right.
going to be a good fit?
This is where I think certain organizations might miss the mark. I think really with instructional design, you obviously want someone who has some of these technical skills, but
Right.
those can be learned as well. But you really want someone.
I like that. See,
Yeah.
Rob's on from Pittsburgh. Rob, you would like this. That makes total sense, that you can learn. Rob's
Right.
always saying about he needs to learn, but he doesn't have that skill. And when he went a couple places, I said, they teach you. You got to learn. So go ahead.
But I do feel like in this world, you have to be comfortable learning quickly, and someone who, oh gosh, maybe is, you can tell can handle some feedback, because that can be some issues too.
Can you get the younger generation? Can you get them in here, the ones that just don't have the schooling, that are just like a whiz? You know what I mean? Like, if can you tell like a passion from a person, like the way you're talking to them, and they know what they're doing, but they don't have the education, or I guess what do you tell somebody like that? That's just as important too, I can imagine, right? I mean, or
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gosh, I don't know how, and I don't know how you really judge that feedback in an interview. That's kind of a difficult thing to say. You don't want to offend someone, just see how they react. It's a
right.
horrible,
That's true.
judge
Yeah.
of feedback. But
No, that's true. Yeah. When you think of it that way.
yeah, I mean, I feel like and right now too, there's so many layoffs. I just think there's just so many people who have such lengthy experience in this world that
Right.
they're getting grabbed up quickly, and there's a flooded market, so there's a lot to choose from. And not that I'm newer, but I am a little bit newer into the instructional design world directly.
Right.
Um,
But you
that I
got a
think
lot of
that,
transferable skills. I use that
oh yeah,
word a lot because my job as a recruiter is to sell you, to get that client to say, you know what, I want Allison to work for me. Why? This is why I like doing a video. I know people will say, oh, I don't like doing videos. It's biased. I don't want to show my age. I don't want to show this. By interviewing you tonight, it's hard to learn just from somebody from a resume when I'm looking at it. But learning from you tonight, I can tell you have certain skill sets that I'd be like, okay, you don't see that. And I know people, again, you've worked remote so long, you're probably so used to being on video compared to some, but I just think it shows something about you, different.
absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like this was a good opportunity for a different reach than I had been, with just sitting on my resume. And it's great what you're doing, honestly.
Thanks. If you had, I already asked that question. I have a couple more. We're almost done. A couple more. This thing, we went fast. We're already at 35 minutes. That was really good. What do you, if you were to tell somebody looking at there for what you do, what do you think your strengths are? You've got the schooling, you've done tenure at, from the teaching and what you're getting into now. Why should they hire you? What are your strengths?
Um, this is the worst
I
question,
know.
right? You feel like you're over here bragging about yourself.
Yeah, but it's okay. Sometimes you got to brag. Sometimes you got to brag. Sometimes.
Yeah, and I struggle a little bit with feeling like comfortable with that. But I'm quick to learn. I am very oh gosh, yeah, I can't even answer this. It's difficult. Maybe I should have this prepared. I'm eager to learn. I'm eager
Right.
to want to know more and do better and really and my end focus really is in the instructional design world to hit those end users, and sometimes that gets lost in just making something pretty. And so I do have the right goals
Right.
for what someone would want in an instructional.
That communication has got to be, I can imagine. I mean, listen, I mean, for what you do and for the writings and all that you're responsible for it. And even like when I look at like you were talking about hiring process, we look at that and we take that for granted because it's just given to us.
Right.
But you forget behind the scenes who's developing all that.
Right.
What knowledge do you have that we don't? You know what I mean? Like it's always like, okay, why do you think they know everything? But I guess when you look at that, I forgot one question though. What do you have to have some kind of hobby? What is not on this resume that we don't know about Allison Perez?
Well, I had a very brief stint in roller derby, and I didn't like getting beat up. So,
oh my God! See, this is why it's nice. Come on, roller derby. Hey, Rob, check that out. Roller derby. I have never had somebody on the show. That was something back in the '80s. They actually still do that.
Still going, just not the bank tracks. Well, I think some teams still have bank tracks, but yeah, no, I got pregnant, so I had to quit. And it's been 5 years, but I picked up roller skating again. But now it's the fun stuff, not the getting beat up stuff.
Oh my God, that has got to be the best. That has got to be the best. I can't even imagine it. That just tells you the other side of you. Don't piss you off. Because I think that was back in the 80s. Oh my God, 80s and 90s. We used to be on TV. So I'll hit you on that part. One more question here. What kind of management team or supervisors do you like leaders like working for?
I love that coaching leadership where,
Ooh, I
because
like
it
that.
encourages you to grow and get better at what you're doing. And I just recently experienced this, like the best supervisor, hands down, someone so selfless
Right.
and that's always looking for, ready to cheer you on to grow, but also ready to give you that feedback to get better.
Yeah.
And
I like that, coaching supervisor.
yeah, oh yeah,
I like that. That's
and it was I don't know, I just had a great experience, and
yeah.
I've never had that kind of experience with a supervisor before. I mean, had great supervisors, don't get me wrong. It was just I just am floored with how selfless this
Right.
supervisor was, and that is hard to find. So
Yeah, I think I have like 5, and I always say this. Listen, the top 5 leaders in my life have always been females. Am I
yeah,
allowed to say that? Yeah, I'm allowed to say that. I mean, but it has been the top 5 in my whole career is when I've worked with everybody's been a female. The guys I don't get along with or something like that. But a leader to me is like you said. I mean, somebody that coaches you and teaches you and doesn't really just come after you. You know, you make mistakes, you learn.
right.
I'm sorry, I don't
It's
care
hard.
how old you are. Like I can imagine what you do. It's just nonstop learning.
Oh yeah, and it is a lot about fail fast, fail hard, so
Yeah,
that you can learn from it. And I'm all about that. Jump in, do something new. If like this, for example, doing something new here by
right.
by coming on your show. But yeah, do something new. Fail fast, fail hard, so you can grow and learn and get better and try something new. Maybe something new comes out of that failure that hadn't been thought of before.
That
So.
has been. That's awesome. But Allison, I really want to thank you, and then I'm going to give you a minute here. But I wanted to tell everybody again, Allison Perez. She made some comments on the show that I did with Shelly, and let's put her back to work. She's in Winter Haven, Florida, instructional designer, and I'm going to say that curriculum writer. I like that. I like that part. But please reach out to Allison. Messenger on LinkedIn if you know anybody who's looking for a good worker here. But Allison, this is your minute elevator speech towards the end. What you're looking for, where at again, remote, and the time is yours.
Right. So I'm looking for anything in learning and development, instructional design, sometimes called e-learning designer, sometimes called e-learning developer, anything really in that wheelhouse. I'd be happy in a training capacity. Yeah, anything in learning development. And I am in Central Florida, in the areas around Lakeland, Winter Haven, Auburndale, Bartow, Lake Wales. Did I say that? Lake
Yeah,
Wales
no,
and
you didn't say
Haines
that one.
City.
You didn't say that one.
Okay, yeah. So that's it.
That's it. All right. But thank you for. I'm going to do a video here, and then we're going to talk for a minute afterwards. So thank you so much again, Allison, and we'll be talking soon.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Yep. There we go. Let's play a video.